Hi, I'm Wave Theory, and I review sound gear, mostly headphone gear, and have been doing so in written form on Hi-Fi Guide's forum and Headfi for over a year now, so I will put a link to my full written library in the description of this video. And today, here in video form, we're going to try to hit some highlights on the Schiit Asgard 3. Now, just to put it all up front here, I really like this amplifier. It was one of my earliest personally owned headphone amps, and it stayed as a workhorse in my system for quite a while. And so I want to dig into why that was and what I liked about it and why it's still here, even though I have upgraded well beyond it at this point. So what this is a Class AB headphone amp that has quite a bit of power output. I think it's rated at up to 5 watts per channel at 32 ohms or some such thing. But like power is generally a non-issue with this amp. It's got quite a lot of kick to it in that regard. But it's also really good, clean, powerful power. It's got a lot of power. It delivers that power when it needs it, where it needs it, pretty effectively for the price point. And that's also why we need to talk about this amp. Is like, even though it recently had a price hike, it originally released at 199 US dollars, and it is now 249 US dollars direct from Schiit. And so I will put that link below. Like, even at that $250 price point, I still think this is probably one of the all-around best, if not the all-around best performing headphone amps, probably until you get to the price point of Schiit's own Jotunheim 2 at $400. Okay, anything below that, I think you really have to look at this one. Now, when I say performance, I am talking about subjective performance in a lot of ways. This is not a measurement chaser, although its measurements are strong. I think its SINAD is 107 dB or something like that. So it measures in the range where measurements are not a concern. So what is it about this amp? And it's just like, for the price, it just sounds incredibly natural and lifelike. Okay, its real strengths are in its timbre and its spatial presentation. All right, it sounds really natural, and what I mean by like the timbre is that human voices just sound a lot like human voices. Guitars sound a lot like guitars, like how they would sound in real life. Pianos sound like pianos. Cymbals sound like cymbals. Just that kind of thing. It does a really good job at its price point of creating a believable approximation and reproduction of how the sounds would sound in the wild. Is it perfect at that? No. No product is. But what it does at its price point in that regard is really remarkable, I think, and class leading in that regard. Same with the spatial presentation. It has a nice, big, wide soundstage, not artificially wide or anything. It sounds nice and real and convincing. And it places and separates instruments. So its imaging and separation are also very, very strong at the price point. It's also pretty good at the dynamic impact and punch. And I think that's a trait of the Schiit house sound, honestly, is that they have a pretty good dynamic, lots of punch to it, nice snappy sound that's, pretty aggressive. Maybe aggressive isn't on the word, but you notice it. Like, it hits you on the attack, all that, and that's here. So I think those three things in particular, the timbre, the spatial presentation, and not quite as much, but still kind of right there, the dynamic impact, keep this amplifier competitive with products that can cost into the $400, $500, $600 range. Now, where it's not as strong as those, middle hundreds in price point amps, is it's not as resolving. I think this is the most resolving amp at its price point. Okay? And to beat it in terms of raw resolution power, I think you do have to go up to the $400 Jotunheim 2, which again is another Schiit product. But it doesn't scale up in the resolution quite as well as it scales up with the timbre and the spatial presentation and the dynamic punch. But it's still very good in that regard for the price. So, I mean, those are, there you go. It does have a bit of a neutral warm signature to it. So if you're expecting just a completely dead neutral signature, it just doesn't quite have it. This does lean a little bit more towards a warmer, thicker sound. You might hear some describe it tube-like, although I think that is misleading, as there isn't a set tube sound out there, but at the price point, it leans a little bit in the direction of what tube amps near this price point sound like, although not nearly as warm, thick, and sloppy. It just hints at that. Okay, but yeah, for the price, for $250, I am not aware of a headphone amp that beats this and just raw technicalities and performance and sounding like the real thing. Okay, so if you are in the market for an amplifier and you have some power-hungry headphones, like this drives the 600 ohm Beyer DT880 just fine. It drives the Sennheiser 600 series, HD 600 series, which are all 300 ohm just fine. This handles large planars really well. Like my LCD2 pre-phaser sounds really good on this. When I had the Hi-Fi Men Edition XV2, that sounded pretty good on here. Like if you're exploring headphones, you know, under 1K probably, this will give you a very fair evaluation of them. And so because of that, and because I am into reviewing, I have kept this amp around because I think it is the best example of what can happen at what was $200 and is now $250. So I think there's a lot of value here, and that it really helps me evaluate headphones and say, hey, what does this headphone sound like? And I think this does a really good job with that. So that's the Schiit Asgard 3. I don't think I've actually done a full written review of this piece. And I have some thoughts scattered about in various forums, so I will link to some of those below. What I do have is a very thorough comparison of about 6 different headphone amps that were at the time all under $250, or $200, I should say. This one's now $250. That's tripping me up. But I did declare this the champion of that group, which shouldn't be surprising at this point. So I will link to that as well, and you can read more about my thoughts there. But yeah, I mean, you look at the whole package here, the build quality, I mean, it's solidly built. I did add this piece of electrical tape to the potentiometer knob here just so I could see it a little bit better. But the build quality, the sound quality, the whole package for this price, I don't think you're going to beat it right now. I hope that somebody does best it at this price point, because we will all win in that scenario, and that will improve the market. But until that happens, here it is, Schiit Asgard 3. So I am Wave Theory. As I said earlier, I've been doing written reviews of sound gear for a while, so please see the links below for all of that. And then otherwise, just please like, subscribe to my channel, all of those things that you do for YouTube channels. And until next time, I am Wave Theory, and enjoy the music.